Hi everyone, my name is Chandru and welcome to my topic respiration. So let's go to the session. So respiration. Respiration is the biological process by which living organisms convert food into energy that can be used by the cells. It involves the exchange of gases such as oxygen, carbon dioxide between an organism and its environment. It is vital for survival as it provides the energy needed for growth, movement, and metabolism. It involves the breakdown of organic compounds such as glucose to produce ATP, carbon dioxide, and water. So, types of respiration. So, in this type of respiration, there are two types: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, occurs in the presence of oxygen and is the most efficient way of for organisms to convert organic compounds into usable energy. It involves a series of chemical reactions that take place in mitochondria of cells, which ultimately results in the production of ATP, carbon dioxide, and water. Next one is the anaerobic respiration. So, in the anaerobic respiration, occurs in the absence of oxygen and is less efficient way for organisms to produce energy. It occurs in some cells, bacteria, fungi, and certain animal tissues such as muscle tissues during strenuous exercise. Anaerobic respiration involves the breakdown of glucose or other organic compounds to produce ATP and either lactate or ethanol as waste product. In addition to these two types of respiration, there is also a process called cellular respiration which encompasses both aerobic and anaerobic respiration as well as other metabolic process involved in the glucose involved in the breakdown of organic compounds to produce energy. So next go to the respiratory pigments. So respiratory pigments are specialized molecules found in the blood or tissues of animals that are involved in the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. These pigments bind to the gases and helps to transport them throughout the body. So let's see each one of the respiratory pigments. So hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is a protein found in the red blood cells of vertebrates and some invertebrates. It plays a critical role in the oxygen transport. Hemoglobin is made up of four subunits, each of which contains a heme group that binds to an oxygen molecule. When hemoglobin is exposed to high concentration, it binds to oxygen in the lungs and releases them in the tissues where oxygen is needed. Hemoglobin also helps to transport carbon dioxide from the tissues for elimination. Next is hemocyanin. Hemocyanin is a copper-containing respiratory pigment found in some vertebrates including arthropods and molluscs. Hemocyanin binds to the oxygen when it is exposed to high partial pressure and releases it when partial pressure of oxygen decreases. Unlike hemoglobin, hemocyanin does not bind to oxygen in the blood plasma, but rather it circulates freely in the blood, as hemocyanin gives blue color to the blood. The next one is the chloroquine. Chloroquine is a respiratory pigment found in some marine animals such as polychaetes. It uses chlorophyll as its oxygen binding metal ion, which gives it the green color. Chloroquine is a Chloroquine is most efficient at oxygen transport in low oxygen environments where other respiratory pigments may not function as well. So next one is hemoerythrin. So hemoerythrin is a protein found in some vertebrates that helps transport oxygen in vertebrates. It contains ions, atoms, ion atoms and has a higher affinity for oxygen, allowing it to efficiently extract oxygen in low oxygen concentration. It may also play a role in nitrogen metabolism and immune defense. So let's go to the next session. It's oxygen transport, gaseous transport. So gaseous exchange is the process by which oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged between an organism and its oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged between lungs and the blood, between the blood and the tissues. So, during the gaseous exchange, oxygen diffuses from the environment into the organism's body and carbon dioxide diffuses out of the body into the environment. The diffusion of gases occurs down a concentration gradient from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. So there are two processes happens in the gaseous transport. One is oxygen transport, another one is carbon dioxide transport. So oxygen transport. Oxygen transport is the process by which oxygen is carried from the lungs to the body's tissue. Oxygen is transported by bloodstream, which is composed of blood plasma and blood cells. Specifically, oxygen is carried by the hemoglobin molecule in red blood cells. When oxygen enters the lungs during inhalation, it diffuses across the alveolar membrane and into the capillaries surrounding the alveoli. From there, it binds to the hemoglobin molecules in RBC, forming oxyhemoglobin. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry up to four oxygen molecules. Oxyhemoglobin is then transported through the pulmonary veins to the left side of the heart, which pumps it into the systemic circulation. The systemic circulation delivers oxygen-rich blood to the body's tissues, where oxygen is released from the hemoglobin molecules and diffuses into the cells for cellular respiration. Factors that affect oxygen transport include the amount of hemoglobin in the blood, the partial pressure of oxygen in the air and the bloodstream, the pH of the blood. If amount of oxygen in the blood is reduced, less oxygen can be carried to the body's tissues. Similarly, if the partial pressure of oxygen in the air or in the bloodstream is low, less oxygen can be transported to the tissues. Changes in the pH can also affect the oxygen transport. So, totally. So overall, oxygen transport is process by which oxygen is carried from the lungs to the body's tissue. Oxygen is carried by the hemoglobin molecules in the red blood cells, and factors such as amount of hemoglobin, the partial pressure of oxygen, and the pH of blood can affect the efficiency of oxygen transport. So next one is the oxygen dissociation curve. The oxygen dissociation curve is a graph shows the proportion of oxyhemoglobin and an oxygen pressure. So in this picture you can see one x-axis shows the partial pressure of oxygen in mmHg and the y-axis shows oxyhemoglobin percentage saturation. So when the oxygen pressure is low, the percentage of hemoglobin formed will also be lesser. That is, low oxygen pressure, the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen will be lesser. When oxygen pressure is high, the percentage of high hemoglobin saturation formed will be also high. So it shows a S-shaped curve. So next one is the carbon dioxide transport. Carbon dioxide transport is produced as a waste product during cellular respiration and needs to be transported out of the body. Like oxygen, carbon dioxide is transported in the blood through several different mechanisms. So first one is the dissolved carbon dioxide. As it shows only about 5%. A small amount of carbon dioxide dissolves around 5% dissolves in the plasma and is transported in the blood as dissolved carbon dioxide. So next one is the carbinohemoglobin. A small portion of carbon dioxide, around 5%, binds to the hemoglobin, forming carbaminohemoglobin. This binding occurs at different sites than oxygen binding and doesn't interfere with the oxygen transport. Next one is the bicarbonate ions. The majority of carbon dioxide is converted to bicarbonate ions in red blood cells through a series of reactions called the Haldane effect. Carbonic anhydrase, an enzyme present in the red blood cells, catalyzes the reaction of carbon dioxide and water to form carbonic acid, which then dissociates into bicarbonate ions and hydrogen ions. The bicarbonate ions then diffuses out of the RBC and into the plasma, while the hydrogen ions are buffered by hemoglobin or other molecules. So the bicarbonate ions are transported in the blood plasma to the lung, where they diffuse back into the RBC RBC. Therefore, there they react the hydrogen ions to form carbonic acid, which is then converted to back into the carbon dioxide and water. The carbon dioxide then can be inhaled. The rate of carbon dioxide transport can be influenced by several factors. For example, an increase in carbon dioxide production can cause an increase in the carbon dioxide transport. Additionally, the changes in the pH can affect the formation and dissociation of carbonic acid, which can affect carbon dioxide transport. So, so the bicarbonate buffer system plays a key role in regulating the transport of carbon dioxide and maintaining acid-base balance in the body. So thank you so much. Thanks for listening.